Oh, you thought Saskatchewan voted red? Yeah, me too, until I remembered it's Saskatchewan. But here we are, folks. One Liberal MP you know. A single, solitary Liberal sitting in Ottawa representing the prairies, probably wondering if he left the oven on back home because nobody else from his party is around to check. Buckley Belanger, the name alone sounds like he should be hosting a cooking show or running a bed and breakfast, is Saskatchewan's only Liberal MP, and honestly, he's living the political equivalent of being the last kid picked for dodgeball. But here's the twist. Mark Carney, Canada's shiny new Prime Minister, looked at this lone prairie warrior and said, "You know what? Let's make him the Secretary of State for Rural Development." Bold move, Mark. Bold move. So what's it like being the only red dot in a sea of conservative blue? How does Buckley feel about his first year in Ottawa? And what does he actually think about his boss, Mark Carney? Buckle up, because we're diving into the most unexpectedly fascinating political underdog story Canada didn't know it needed. Let me paint you a picture. It's 2025. Election night. Saskatchewan results are rolling in, and surprise, surprise, it's a conservative sweep, except for one riding. Desnith, Mississippi, Churchill River. That's where Buckley Belanger pulled off what political analysts are calling either a miracle or a really good ground game. This guy has been in politics longer than most of us have been adulting. He's a veteran, not in the I just got here sense, but in the I've seen 3 prime ministers come and go sense. He knows Saskatchewan like the back of his hand, which, let's be honest, is probably calloused from all the handshakes. But winning as a Liberal in Saskatchewan in 2025? That's like selling ice to Inuit communities. It's not supposed to work, and yet here we are. Now, Buckley isn't your typical Ottawa politician. He's not giving you the smooth-talking, rehearsed answer, "Let me pivot to my talking points" routine. In his recent interview with CBC, he basically admitted that when Mark Carney came knocking for advice on Saskatchewan politics, he didn't have much to offer. And you know what? That's refreshingly honest. He literally said Carney probably knew more about Saskatchewan than he did because the guy studies a lot of these places he deals with. Can we just appreciate that for a second? Imagine being the only Saskatchewan Liberal MP and telling your boss, "Yeah, you probably got this better than me, chief." That's either incredible humility or a subtle roast wrapped in politeness. I'm going with both. But let's talk about what makes this story juicy. Mark Carney didn't just win the Liberal leadership, he became Prime Minister and immediately started shaking things up. And in May, he looked at his options for Secretary of State for Rural Development and picked the one guy from Saskatchewan who managed to survive the electoral apocalypse. That's not just strategic, that's poetic. Carney knows rural Canada is feeling ignored, alienated, and frankly, ticked off at Ottawa. So what does he do? He puts the only Saskatchewan Liberal in a position specifically designed to address rural concerns. It's like bringing a fire extinguisher to a dumpster fire. Will it work? Who knows? But at least someone's trying. Here's where it gets interesting. Saskatchewan has one of the most tense provincial-federal relationships in Canada right now. Premier Scott Moe and the federal Liberals have been going at it like divorced parents arguing at a school play. Carbon taxes, energy policy, equalization payments, you name it, they're fighting about it. And now Buckley Belanger is stuck in the middle, trying to build bridges while everyone else is lighting matches. He's basically the political equivalent of a group chat mediator. Good luck with that, Buckley. You're going to need it. But what does Belanger actually think about Carney? Well, he's complimentary, which makes sense because criticizing your boss publicly is generally a bad career move. But reading between the lines, there's something genuine there. Belanger seems to respect that Carney actually does his homework. In a political landscape where leaders often rely on advisors to tell them what to think, Carney apparently digs into the details himself. That's rare. Whether you love or hate the guy's policies, you have to admit that preparation matters. And for Belanger, who's dealing with a province that feels perpetually misunderstood by Ottawa, having a prime minister who actually studies the files might be the difference between disaster and damage control. Now let's zoom out for a second. What does it mean to be the only Liberal MP from Saskatchewan? It means you're representing a constituency that probably didn't vote for your party in droves. It means you're the token prairie voice in a caucus dominated by urban Ontario and Quebec. It means every single rural issue that comes up, people are looking at you like, well, you're from there, what do we do? That's a lot of pressure. But it also gives Belanger a unique kind of power. He's not just another backbencher. He's the guy Carney needs if he wants any credibility in Saskatchewan. That's leverage. And Belanger knows it. So what has Belanger actually accomplished in his first year? Well, he got appointed to a cabinet-level position, which is no small feat for a rookie MP. He's been vocal about rural issues, pushing for infrastructure investment, better internet access, and economic opportunities outside major urban centers. These aren't flashy, headline-grabbing initiatives, but they're the kind of practical, boots-on-the-ground stuff that actually matters to people living in places like Desnith, Missinippi, Churchill River. Is it enough? Probably not. But it's a start. And in politics, sometimes a start is all you get before the next election rolls around. Let's also talk about the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the donkey? The Liberal Party in Western Canada is basically on life support. Winning one seat in Saskatchewan isn't a victory, it's a participation trophy. The Liberals know they have a branding problem out west, and it's not going away anytime soon. Belanger is essentially a test case. Can a Liberal MP actually represent rural, Western interests without being drowned out by the party's urban, central Canadian priorities? Can he push back against his own government when Saskatchewan needs him to? That's the real question. And so far, the jury's still out. But here's what I find most compelling about Buckley Belanger's story. He's not trying to be a hero. He's not positioning himself as the savior of Western Canada or the lone voice of reason in a broken system. He's just showing up, doing the work, and being refreshingly honest about the challenges. In a political environment that often feels like performance art, that's almost radical. Maybe that's why he won. Maybe people in his riding saw someone who actually seemed real, who understood their frustrations, and who wasn't going to BS them with empty promises. Or maybe they just really liked the guy. Either way, he's here now, and he's making the best of an impossible situation. As for Mark Carney, appointing Belanger was a smart move. It signals that he's at least aware of the rural-urban divide that's tearing this country apart. Whether he can actually do anything about it is another story. But having someone like Belanger in his cabinet gives him a direct line to the concerns of rural Canadians. It also gives the Liberals a much-needed voice from a region where they're usually about as welcome as a vegan at a steakhouse. Will it translate into more Liberal seats in Saskatchewan next election? Probably not. But it might stop the bleeding. And in politics, sometimes that's the win. So what's next for Buckley Belanger? Well, he's got a lot of work ahead of him. Rural development isn't a sexy portfolio, but it's essential. Internet connectivity, healthcare access, economic diversification, these are the issues that keep rural communities alive. If Belanger can actually move the needle on any of this, he'll have earned his keep. If not, well, he'll probably still be the only Liberal MP from Saskatchewan, wondering what could have been. And that's the thing about Canadian politics right now. We're living in a moment where one person can actually make a difference, not because they are some larger-than-life figure, but because they're the only one in the room representing a particular perspective. Buckley Belanger didn't ask to be Saskatchewan's lone Liberal, but here he is. And whether he succeeds or fails, his story is worth paying attention to because it says something about where we are as a country and where we might be headed. So there you have it, folks. Saskatchewan's only Liberal MP, reflecting on a wild first year in Ottawa, giving props to his boss Mark Carney, and trying to navigate the most thankless job in Canadian politics. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, smash that like button and subscribe to Canadian Insights because we're covering all the political chaos you need to stay informed. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think Belanger can actually make a difference, or is he just a political unicorn doomed to be forgotten? Let's talk about it. And if you're from Saskatchewan, I especially want to hear from you. Until next time, stay sharp, stay informed, and keep questioning everything.